Welcome, honorary members. Good morning. Good morning, Deputy Minister Godlimpi. Good morning to your team from the department and other members of the public and the film industry. Please excuse me for my croaky voice. I am still suffering from a bit of a cold that I picked up over the weekend. The chairperson, Mr. Messina, has asked me to stand in for the first half hour or so while he gets off a plane. So, Andre, do we have a quorum for the meeting?
Good morning, Mr. Chance and members and everyone on the platform. Chair, we correct. Shall I do a roll call?
Yes, please.
Ms. Slazo-Webster,
I'm on the call. Good morning, colleagues.
Mr. Koza is on the platform.
Thanks, members. Morning, Chair. Morning, Andre. Morning, members.
Mr. Three,
Good morning, Chair. Morning, colleagues.
Dr. Kigaba,
Morning, Chair. Morning, colleagues. Morning, Deputy Minister. I'm present. Thank you.
Mr. Mdluli,
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. I'm present.
Ms. Firi,
Good morning, colleagues. I'm here. I'm present. Thank you.
Chair, Mr. Gama just joined the platform. He's here. Mr. Gama? Those are all members on the platform at the moment, Mr. Chance.
Okay, thank you very much, Andre. Could we then please have a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Mlondi. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Ms. Webster?
Thank you, Honourable Ms. Leslie Webster. So let us start our meeting. On January the 28th, 2026, the film and television sector stakeholders under the Save SA Film Jobs campaign marched to Parliament and handed over a memorandum outlining the sector's concerns about the payments of the film and television production incentive by the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition and the impact thereof on the sector. Following this, in a meeting on the 17th of February 2026, the Portfolio Committee on Trade, Industry and Competition, the committee, engaged the Save SA Film Coalition and the DTIC, including its development finance entities, the Industrial Development Corporation and the National Empowerment Fund. The committee was concerned about the broad economic implications, as evidence presented to it reflects the film and television incentives' historic contribution to economic growth, employment, transformation, and the spillover benefits into related sectors such as tourism, hospitality, construction, and professional services. This is a follow-up meeting with the DTIC and its developmental finance entities, together with representatives from films, to ascertain progress made to resolve concerns discussed on the 17th of February 2026. So, Deputy Minister, I'm going to invite you to make some opening remarks and then hand over to your team as you see fit. Deputy Minister, over to you.
Mr. Chance?
Yes.
The agenda item is, if you look at the agenda, the film industry was presenting first, Chair.
Oh, okay. Well, I just thought I'd give the Deputy Minister
No
an
problem.
opportunity just to quickly, for protocol's sake, just say a few words and welcome himself.
No problem. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Honorable Chance, today's chairperson, and good morning to all members of the committee. Good morning to all the members that are with us on the platform. I too came down with the flu the past couple of days, so I'm going to sound a bit funny today, but I think I'll be able to get through with today's work, even if I sound a little bit nasal. So thanks very much, Honorable Chance. And as you've already said, this is a follow-up session following on the work that we did on the 17th of February, and that was after the film industry colleagues marched to Parliament, I think, as you said, on the 28th of January. And since then, the work of the committee in providing oversight has been very useful to us as a department in trying to figure out a path forward on how best to respond to the problems that the sector was complaining about. And one of the things that we collectively agreed on was that there is a great opportunity that is available to us to improve the competitiveness, sustainability, and growth of our South African film industry and the audiovisual industry, broadly speaking. And we are all collectively committed to seeing that through. And we did say then, and we still say today, that the conversation we had in February in the portfolio committee, we didn't view it as an isolated discussion, but rather it was part of a wider set of discussions that we've been having with the industry and including with Parliament and other government departments in trying to solve for this problem. Now, since our session in February, the department has continued with discussions around the enhancement of the incentive framework, including a proposal to introduce a tax-based incentive for especially the foreign film production houses, because we said they have much larger balance sheets and they could be able to put down the capital outlay required to see through a production and then get a tax rebate afterwards, as opposed to a front loading of a cash transfer, as it were. Now, the other thing that the department has done, as I indicated, it had to have a discussion with the National Treasury as well to look at the feasibility of this tax-based incentive across not just the film industry, but a number of the department's support programs that are all incentive-based. So the discussions around the film industry incentive are not just that. There are other incentives that are facing similar pressures, and we've been looking at a way of recalibrating them and talking to the National Treasury on how best to provide fiscal support, even if it's not fiscal transfers, as it has traditionally been the way of working. Now, all of this has been aimed at building an incentive framework that is fiscally sustainable, one, but that is also administratively efficient, so that it doesn't impose a huge burden both on the users and the department on the side of administering it. And then, of course, it has to be responsive to the evolving needs of both domestic and international investors, so that the uptake could be higher and it could also be useful to those who are producing films. And that is what we want to see. Now, we've also maintained regular interactions with representatives of the film and audiovisual industry since that period. And these engagements have provided an important platform for constructive dialogue on the challenges facing the sector, as well as the reforms required to support its long-term growth and sustainability. While we value these engagements, we're also mindful of the industry's view that discussions have reached an impasse on certain matters. We acknowledge these concerns and we remain committed to engaging in good faith to find practical and sustainable solutions. We do believe that with continued dialogue, informed of course by evidence and supported by collaboration between government and industry, that dialogue will provide us the best opportunity to resolve outstanding issues and strengthen the sector. As I was explaining, some of these policy instruments are administered by the DTIC, but don't originate from the DTIC. So we are having these engagements in order to find a workable mechanism, bringing in other stakeholder departments as well into the equation, where we draw our fiscal support from, which is what we are then responsible for. So we need them as well to buy into our logic, including the sustainability of the incentive schemes themselves, so that they could provide us with the support that we need. So discussion fatigue is a reality. We accept that it does arise and people might feel frustrated that progress is slow. It's not moving as fast as they would ideally want it to, but all of that is not so much the doing of the DTIC, but rather an effort to carry along other government departments that are instrumental in solving this problem together with us. The few things that we agree on is that there's a need for policy certainty, there must be transparent processes, and there must be efficiency in implementing those processes. Now, the department remains committed to strengthening its systems, in improving the administration of the program, and maintaining open and constructive channels of communication with stakeholders. In fact, part of this frustration with the process has led to something that has come to my attention, which I thought I would raise up front here with the portfolio committee and the film industry colleagues as well. There seems to be a sense that this frustration is due to problems that could be explained through an individual official in the department. That would be a very, very, very strange way of viewing what are otherwise structural problems that the incentive scheme is faced with. And not just the film one, but broadly the entire incentive scheme, framework in the DTIC is experiencing severe pressure. The portfolio committee would be familiar with our discussions around including the auto industry incentive scheme that they've been calling for a review of, that it must be updated. We have similar things around the manufacturing incentives as well. There's a problem with the Black Industrialists Program scheme as well, all of which need to be relooked at. So we have all of these problems across the board because structurally, the fiscal allocations have been overrun by demand over time, and the agility of the state sector in providing more fiscal cover to the DTIC has been declining. So we're still sitting at a baseline of 10 billion rands when we should be sitting at about 18 billion rands if we were to do an inflation-adjusted incremental allocation over the years. So the idea that the problems with the film incentive can be explained by the removal or replacement of one single official is not a true reflection of what the problem truly is. And it carries the misfortune of placing a structural crisis in the doorsteps of an official who themselves is on the receiving end of the envelope. They don't construct the envelope, so to speak. So that's the one thing that I thought I should raise, that out of the frustration, there comes this possibility of bringing what looks like is a solution, but it is not a solution in substance, given the fact that that person might be the one interacting with the industry, but they are not the principal maker of the structural problem that the incentive scheme is sitting with. Having said all of that, I want to say that the department remains committed to implementing all the outstanding actions that are known between the portfolio committee, the department, and the industry themselves, and that we will work collaboratively still with all stakeholders, and that all concerns raised by industry are being addressed and will be addressed in a structured and transparent manner as we've undertaken through this process. Now, Chairperson, as I said, we always welcome the committee's observations and recommendations on how we should handle these problems. They generally assist us in refining our interventions and ensuring that South Africa remains a globally competitive destination for including the film and audiovisual production houses, while fostering, of course, a transformed, inclusive, and sustainable industry that contributes to the country's industrial development objectives. With that opening, Chair, I think you can kick us off in whatever manner the agenda has sequenced our presentations today. But after that, the departmental staff led by acting DDG Ngwenya will take us through our presentation as the DTIC. Thank you very much.
Thanks, DM. Yes, I think you summarized the main issues quite well. And I'm now going to hand over to the industry. The industry comes first, not the department. Sorry, Deputy Minister. So we are going to follow the agenda as is indicated. So who from the industry is going to start the presentation? We have received a presentation, quite a lengthy one, from the industry. And I note on the agenda that they only have a half an hour to present, whilst the department have over an hour. So I think just to be a bit more balanced, it's now 10:45. We have until quarter past 11 for tea. So I'm going to suggest that we give the industry until 10:30, which is 45 minutes. And then we'll give the department another 45 minutes, which will take us to quarter past 11. So can whoever is presenting from the industry please put their hand up and take over from here. Can you share the presentation with us, please? If you're having a difficulty, then yeah, there we go. I see there's a hand up from Simon Makwela. Could I just take your question, please, Mr. Makwela?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be presenting for the coalition. I'll start the presentation. Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
fantastic. If you could just please introduce yourself, where you fit into the coalition, and other members of the team who are presenting with you, please.
Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister, Deputy Ministers, Honourable members of the committee, Director General and officials of the department, good morning. My name is Simon Makwela. I am a producer, director, and a former film and television editor, having practiced for over 23 years, and I serve as the public representative for the South African Guild of Editors, which is one of the member organizations of this industry. I appear before you today on behalf of the Save South African Film and Television Jobs Coalition. Chairperson, before I begin, I want to place on record who is in the room by proxy. The coalition is not a lobby group. It is a 15 industries bodies acting together. The organizations that represent our writers, actors, editors, cinematographers, animators, producers, background talent, production managers, coordinators, stunts persons, visual effects artists, wardrobe, makeup artists, production accountants at every level. Grassroots, developing, emerging, and established filmmakers from all races, all demographics, creative and non-creative, creative industry workers across the sector. We also speak for the communities that have films that are shot in their villages, cities, schools, homes, and streets. And most of all, we speak for all the South African audiences that love to see their identities, heritage, legacies, and cultures dazzled on silver screens across the world, for them to be proud that they are indeed South Africans. The citizens and industry bodies do not usually agree with one another about very many issues. However, they have agreed about this. We were here on the 17th of February. We came in good faith. We set out a crisis. We set out demands. We left this room believing there was a shared understanding that the film and television production incentive was broken and would be fixed. We return today to report back on months of inaction that has finally necessitated the intervention of the Deputy Director General and the Deputy Minister. South Africa is one of the oldest film industries in the world. We've been making films here since 1910. That's 116 years of accumulated skill. What that century built is a crew base that competes with any other territory on earth. Our heads of departments, our grips, our art departments, and stunt teams are hired by international productions, not out of sentiment, but because they are the best. Add to that our locations, which can double for almost any landscape globally, and an exchange rate that makes a foreign production budget stretch further here than almost anywhere else. That combination is why an incentive made sense in the first place.
Amanda! Ahona motho ya ka nka hlola.
You shouldn't have come here, but I'm glad that you did.
I'm gonna show you something beautiful. You can stay blind, or you can open your eyes.
This is a case of murder and nothing less than murder.
There's only for Pope, man. Like a direct plan, man, me for you. Oh, what are you doing?
Some things are worth fighting for.
Be strong.
Are you with me?
Watch this.
What's the price of freedom?
I don't know.
Everything.
Chairperson, everything you've just watched was made here by South Africans in South African locations. Government did not invent this industry. Government recognized an industry that already existed and could be scaled. In 2004, the DTIC introduced the Foreign Film Incentive to attract international productions and foreign investment into South Africa. In 2008, this was expanded to include the South African and co-production incentive. And in 2014, the Emerging Black Filmmakers Incentive was introduced to advance transformation and participation. Today, this program has 4 incentive streams, all designed to use film production to drive investment, jobs, transformation, and economic activity. And when the incentive functions, the economic returns are very clear. Let me give a committee the numbers. The Olsberg 2005 study puts the gross value added return on investment of this incentive at 5.1. That means for every 1 rand of incentive, 5 rand of value is added to the economy. On employment, the National Film and Video Foundation's 2021 work found that the sector generates 5.65 jobs for every R1 million of expenditure. The average across all South African industries is only 3.1. We create roughly 82% more employment per rand spent than the rest of the economy at large. The income multiplier tells the same story. Film sits at a ratio of 2.82 against the national average of 1.75. Those are not marginal advantages, Chairperson. In a country with our unemployment figures, the industry that outperforms the national average on jobs per rand by that margin should be the last thing that government allows to stall. And the character of that employment matters as much as the volume. This is a sector that hires young people in large numbers. It absorbs semi-skilled labor and trains on the job. This is a sector where a driver can become a transport captain and a runner can become a production coordinator. There are very few industries left in this economy that can still offer that ladder. It also brings in foreign money at speed, where a production can be decided on in March and start spending in our country by June. There is no other sector that can deploy that quantum of hundreds of millions of foreign investment that fast into so many hands in that many provinces. And I want to be concrete, because the committee is entitled to see the arithmetic rather than the promises. The series Raised by Wolves was shot on location in South Africa, with a production budget of 731 million rand. The incentive paid out on that production was 50 million rand. The tax revenue returned to the South African fiscus was 116 million rand, of which 54 million rand was in direct tax, 26 million rand in indirect tax, 36 million in induced tax. So government put in 50 million and collected 116 million before a single job was counted. The total economic impact of one production was 1.25 billion rand and 1,366 full-time equivalent jobs. Moonlighting Films provided the coalition with figures on a project that spent 661 million rand in South Africa. The incentive on that project was 25 million rand. The income tax alone returned to government 61 million rand. That is income tax only, no VAT, no company tax, and no customs, nothing else. 25 million rand out and 61 million rand back from one line of one tax. Chairperson, the incentive is described by the department's language as a grant, and with respect, that description is the origin of this problem. My colleagues will return to this, because not R1 of this incentive is paid before the money has already been spent in South Africa by South African workers and at South African suppliers, which means that every month the incentive does not function. Government is not saving money. It is declining money. It is declining foreign investment that would have come here. The tax on that investment and the jobs that are attached to it. My colleague Untitled Malunga will now take the committee through what has happened in the last 6 months since February. I thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Chairperson, honourable members, Simon has shown the committee what this incentive produces when it functions. My task is to show you what has happened while the department has not opened the adjudication committee meetings and the incentive, despite having budget, and what South Africa has lost in only the last 6 months. My name is Unati Malunga. I'm an entertainment lawyer. I'm the former CEO of the South African Screen Federation, and I'm an industry advocate and lobbyist. Today, I speak to you on behalf of the Save SA Film and TV Jobs Coalition. In January, the coalition delivered 9 formal demands to the DTIC. We reiterated them before this committee on the 17th of February. Chairperson, these were not merely demands for further discussion. They were demands for action. 6 months later, the question is simple. What has actually been done? Let us measure the department's response against the 9 demands we placed before it. Demand number 1 was for leadership engagement. We record this as met. Meetings took place, and we thank the officials and the Deputy Minister and the Deputy DG for their participation. Although officials were instructed to commence specific outcomes by the Deputy Minister, they did not produce the corrective action. Demand number 2, immediately resume adjudication. Not met. This remains the most urgent demand. Without adjudication, there are no approvals. Without approvals, producers cannot close finance and productions cannot proceed. Demand number 3, establish properly constituted industry government work groups within 21 working days. Only partially addressed. Engagements took place, but without the formal work groups, without binding timelines, and without measurable outputs. The tracking portal, the backlog disclosure, and the work on the animation and documentary incentives also has not materialized. Demand number 4, quarterly workshops on the interpretation of the guidelines. Not met. Demand number 5, priority adjudications for productions already underway. Not met. Those productions remain unresolved. Demand number 6 was for transparency. If there are no adjudication meetings, there cannot be transparency to be had because there are no meetings taking place. So this too has not happened. Demand 7, we asked for an independent investigation into maladministration and the governance failures. No investigation has been commissioned. Demand number 8, we asked for a dedicated film financing facility through the IDC and the NEF. No such facility has been established. Demand number 9, we asked to reduce the red tape and properly capacitate the film incentive unit. Producers continue to face the same delays, the same uncertainty, and the same administrative obstacles. That is not an implementation record. That is a record of non-performance. The DTIC has had its 2026-2027 budget allocation for over 4 months. Yet the adjudication committees have still not resumed. The existence of a budget allocation is not the same as the operation of an incentive. Money sitting in a departmental budget does not protect one job, does not unlock one production, nor does it attract R1 of investment. It becomes an economic instrument only when applications are processed, only when adjudications take place, only when decisions are issued, when claims are paid, and when productions can plan with certainty. The department can therefore no longer attribute the continued shutdown solely to a lack of funding. Once a budget has been allocated, but the department still does not convene adjudication committee meetings, the continued paralysis becomes an administrative failure. And that administrative failure has consequences. This graph shows the collapse in investment and employment supported by the incentive. The Olsberg assessment maps the programs in the problems in the incentive program from 2020 onwards directly against declining production activity, economic value, and employment. The incentive stopped functioning. Production activity fell. And South Africa's highly trained workforce has been left standing idle, and capital has flowed to other parts of the world. That graph shows the decline across the entire industry. The next slide shows you what that same failure has cost just one South African company in only 6 months. One South African production services company has lost 4 projects. That means the country has lost 822 million in production expenditure and approximately 1,850 jobs that those projects would have supported during this financial year. That's from one company alone. These productions didn't leave South Africa because another country offered better weather or better crews. The producers told the South African company plainly that the uncertainty about the rebate was the reason that these productions have been moved. In May, we, as the coalition, submitted an action plan designed to prevent losses of exactly this kind. Almost 3 months later, we have received no substantive response on that action plan. These projects should have stayed in South Africa, and they didn't. Those 4 lost projects show the scale of the damage, but they also expose something more fundamental. The decision not to operate the incentive has actually cost the state more than it would have costed to fund it. The incentive required to secure those 4 projects was approximately 75 million rand, about 9% of their combined South African expenditure. That 75 million would have unlocked 822 million in production expenditure and supported the 1,850 jobs. In exchange for withholding that 75 million of the incentive, South Africa gave up that 822 million in production expenditure. The state therefore forfeited an estimated 100 million to 125 million in tax revenue alone, more than the incentive would have actually cost. The failure to operate the incentive has actually made the fiscus itself poorer. The incentive pays for itself. And those figures expose why describing this instrument simply as a grant obscures how it actually works. The language used to describe this instrument actually matters. The department has repeatedly described this as a grant, but economically that description is misleading. Government does not hand a producer money in advance and hope that economic activity will follow. The producer raises the finance. The producer carries the risk. The producer spends the money in South Africa, hires South African workers, and procures from South African suppliers. the expenditure must still then be audited and verified. That expenditure must then be incurred, supported, and verified before the state reimburses an approved percentage of qualifying expenditure. Economically, that functions as a public-private investment partnership in which the private party spends first and government participates only after measurable economic activity has already taken place. But the consequences of the department's dysfunction are also not distributed equally. The filmmakers with the least access to capital are the ones who are least able to carry prolonged uncertainty created by the department. The Black Filmmakers Incentive was created to address historical exclusion, was to develop Black talent, was to strengthen Black ownership, and to ensure that Black South Africans can tell and own their stories. It offers the highest rebate percentage, and yet it is the least used component of the whole incentive program. An incentive intended to open the door has placed a bureaucratic obstacle course in front of it. The applicant must establish and administer a special purpose company for one production. The filmmaker must demonstrate secured finance, must satisfy detailed ownership and personnel requirements, must secure distribution arrangements, must manage expenditure through prescribed accounts, must produce extensive corporate and financial documentation, and must carry the consequences of any delay or interpretive uncertainty. These requirements may be manageable for an established company with capital, with accountants, with lawyers, and with an administrative department. But for an emerging Black filmmaker, they become the barrier that prevents entry into the system altogether. A transformation instrument that its intended beneficiaries cannot use is not transforming the industry. It is reproducing, actually, the exclusion it was created to cure.
Angibingelele, igama uGodongwe Nemthethwa. I'm a Joburg-based filmmaker, founder and CEO of Black Content Studios. So I just want to share my 2 cents on this matter of the rebate that the film industry is actually fighting for. For many years until this present day, as a film industry, our voices continue to be suppressed. And emerging filmmakers like myself and people from Emakhaya and the township, they don't benefit from this fund. So we want them to buy so that it benefits everyone, so that stories can be told throughout the countries from all directions and corners of the country, so that we can see the industry cool. So siyacela nje ukuthi bayidedele imali sikwazi ukuthi sisebenze sikhathele ukutoyitoya. We don't want to take it to the streets. We want to sit kuma office and have discussions where we reach consensus and sivumela abantu ukuthi babuyele emsebenzini. So ilokho engizokusho, angibonge.
Chairperson, we're not presenting statistics. Those are that he represents the voice of South African filmmakers, telling Parliament what bureaucratic exclusion feels like from the other side of the application form. Now, after hearing that testimony and seeing the economic evidence, Parliament must now confront the question that oversight cannot avoid. Who is accountable for this sustained failure? Chairperson, the coalition has debated this matter very carefully, because we do not raise questions about an individual official lightly. But oversight of a program that has effectively collapsed must surely include oversight of the person responsible for leading and administering it. The Film and Television Incentive Unit has been headed by Ms. Nelly Molokwane throughout the period under review. During Ms. Nelly's leadership, the industry has experienced the 2020 repudiations, the introduction of deeply contested 2023 guidelines without industry consultation, the collapse of regular approvals, the failure to convene adjudication committee meetings for more than 30 months, years of mounting unpaid commitments, consistently poor communication with stakeholders, and repeated litigation between producers and the department. The coalition has therefore formally voted on whether we should demand the removal of Ms. Molokwane. All organizations that voted in favor thereof supported the position that we have no confidence in the leadership of this unit. Not one organization voted against it. One abstained. That is an extraordinary statement from an organized film and television industry. It cannot responsibly be ignored. This industry needs a champion leading the film and television incentive unit. Someone who will fight for the industry within government, someone who can rebuild trust, someone who can communicate candidly, someone who can take decisions and deliver against binding timelines. We must therefore ask the unavoidable question: how can the same official who has led this unit throughout its collapse credibly be entrusted without any change or consequence with its recovery? On the subject of litigation, a new case has been brought to our attention. This shows that the DTIC officials have purposefully been hindering producers in their claim processes. The case findings read as follows, and I'm quoting now. In a separate matter currently subject to arbitration, tribunal findings established that the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition unlawfully repudiated a grant funding agreement and engaged in dilatory conduct. Furthermore, the arbitration record demonstrates severe procedural unfairness by the department's legal division, which conducted a predetermined investigation designed to frustrate the project and actively withheld key documents from both the Director General and the project principals. Where's the accountability? Where is the leadership? Some of you might be asking what dilatory means. Dilatory is an adjective that means slow, tardy, or inclined to waste time. It also describes actions or tactics that are specifically intended to cause a delay or put off a decision. This behavior has been brought to the committee's attention before. In this slide, you will remember from our February presentation, where we pointed this behavior out, and we were hoping our representations to this committee would stop that kind of behavior. Let me remind you what the officials have done and clearly continue to do. Kindly prepare me a letter of notice of intention or cancellation of this claim. Should your office struggle to get all requisite compliance documentation, and make sure the compliance documents are too tough to get, including fresh letters of funding commitments, which we do not think she can provide. Here's an estimation of some of the cases that the industry has taken against the department. Let us not forget the quote that Judge C.J. van der Westhuizen from the Meadow Shark case. He stated, "This matter reeks of Alice in Wonderland." Alice representing the ordinary Joe soap, and Wonderland epitomizing the ultimate bureaucracy and the inevitable labyrinth of approbating and reprobating. So this forms part of a broader pattern of litigation and conflict between producers and the department, arising from delayed decisions, arising from withdrawn approvals, arising from disputed incentive commitments. This has all happened while under Ms. Nelly's watch. while she has headed the film unit. It all needs to stop. The coalition's position is clear. We ask this committee to recommend to the minister and the department that she be removed from the leadership of the Film and Television Incentive Unit, and that the recovery of the program be entrusted to new leadership capable of restoring confidence and getting the incentive working again. And we go one step further. If Ms. Nelly considers herself a champion of the industry, then the industry should not ultimately have to force this decision upon her. Having lost the confidence of the organized industry so overwhelmingly, stepping aside voluntarily could be her final act of good faith towards the industry that she has been entrusted to serve. Whether that change now comes voluntarily or through intervention by the minister, it cannot be postponed. South Africa does not have an unlimited period in which to make this recovery. In February 2027, our credibility as an international production partner will be tested in one of the world's most important film industry platforms. From the 10th to the 16th of February next year, South Africa will be the European film market's country in focus at the Berlinale. This is one of the biggest film festivals in the world. The international film industry will be looking at South Africa. South African filmmakers, producers, and companies will be placed before international buyers, filmmakers, distributors, broadcasters, streaming platforms, and potential co-production partners. We cannot travel to Berlin and tell the world that South Africa is open for collaboration and investment when our principal investment instrument is closed in practice. We must have a functioning, competitive, and trusted incentive to showcase. The question is, what industry will we have left to show them?
Hi, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to us. I apologize for not being there at the Portfolio Committee meeting. I just want to reaffirm, here we are on a film. We are shooting with thousands of extras, South African thing employed, and that's the reason we're not with you today. The industry is so vital to the creative spirit of South Africa, and I really feel that we have to deal with the issues that have been plaguing us for the past 4 or 5 years on the rebate and the uncertainty around it, because so many films are being lost from South Africa to other countries, and we have a vibrant industry here. So I want to pass you on to my sister Nambita, who's also been in the industry for such a long time, and she can say a few words also.
Thanks, Anand. I think it's critically important to understand that even on this film set, we are telling a South African story. We may have international people working on this and international money coming into this, but it is a South African story. That means that we need South African investment to tell our stories. We are not just extras, as Anand has said, but we've got lead actors that are here on this set. And we need to make sure that the industry is not failed by bureaucracy and red D. We need the rebates to get back in.
And we need it now, because this has been going on for so long, and it's so unfortunate and so sad. And I hope that the department, the minister, and the Portfolio Committee can make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Person, the industry has told you what has and what has continued to be lost. Delon will now show you exactly how it can be saved. We thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Anati, for that, and my colleague, Simon Makwela. My name is Delon Bakker. I'm a film producer, and I serve as Chairperson of the Independent Producers Organization of South Africa. We are the primary producing body in the country and the organization which founded the Save SA Film and TV Jobs Coalition. We are conscious of the time of this committee and of the responsibility that comes with appearing before Parliament We have not taken members through this history simply to rehearse past grievances. It is necessary because the chronology of inaction, unanswered correspondence, and delayed engagement explains why the industry has found itself before the committee today. It provides the context against which the recent progress must be properly assessed. We are therefore pleased in the past week, the department and the coalition have agreed on a program of work to be undertaken under the next 3 months. We welcome that development and will participate in the process constructively and in good faith. At the same time, we respectfully place on record that many of the elements now agreed could have been addressed considerably earlier. Before I explain the plan, I need to translate key pieces of jargon. The first is Form B. A producer files a Form B when the production starts shooting. So when you hear Form B, hear this. The cameras are rolling. The money is being spent in South Africa right now. The crew is being paid. The trucks are being hired. The hotels are full and South Africa is working. The second is a Form C. This is a claim filed when the production is finished and the books have been audited. Form C means the work is done. Every rand was spent here. The tax has been collected. The only thing outstanding is the government side of the arrangement. Now, the figures, Chairperson, as the department gave to us in June, are set out as follows. Please note, these are based on figures that are constantly changing. So they might differ slightly to what the department has in their presentation. The total budget for the financial year 2026-2027 is 522.2 million. Contingent liability carried in from last year, 285.9, which leaves 236.3 million rands available for new commitments. Against that available money, the production that have already started shooting without approvals, the Form Bs will be received, that are received by May, represent about 703 million. These are films that have moved into production under the idea that they will eventually be adjudicated. And of that 703 million, 476 million is at a claim stage. Finished films, audited books, tax pays, waiting for an adjudication committee meeting. Chairperson, I want the committee to sit with that last sentence. 476 million of the completed South African production is waiting, not for money to be found, but for an adjudication committee to convene to spend the money they have. The coalition's proposal is built around a simple principle: clear the existing backlog, continue approving viable productions, and manage the resulting liability across the existing MTEF budgets. We do not believe the industry needs to be shut down in order to repair the balance sheet, and the historical performance of the incentive explains why. When a project receives an approval, that does not mean the full approved amount will be ultimately payable. Historically, approximately 40% of approved liabilities fall away, while around 60% ultimately proceed to payment. Some productions never close their financing, do not proceed, or never reach claim stage because of the nature of the film business. And this is attributed not necessarily to the department, but because of how it works in the film industry. But this is a good average to work with to understand what will ultimately be paid. It means an approval is a contingent commitment, not an automatic cash payment until Form Bs are submitted. The number is important because it will help us calculate the proposed approval allocation. In the context of the 2026 to 2029 financial years, the department and the coalition have agreed on a steady management of contingent liabilities without needing to halt any further approvals. The system is simple: opening contingent liability plus current Form Bs, which will only apply to the 26-27 year as adjudication committees will commence regularly from later this year, plus estimated claims on new approvals, less the annual budget, equals the closing contingent liability. This slide shows how this works across the next 3 financial years. The important result is not the arithmetic itself, it's the direction of travel. From approximately 460 million rand to 306 million rand to an estimated 148 million rand of contingent liability. It is important to remember that this was at 2 billion rand 2-3 years ago. So we are making and will make even stronger progress. So even while new productions continue to be approved, the contingent liability declines year by year. That demonstrates that the liability is manageable without shutting the incentive down. The idea levels for the liability to be sustainable are between 148 million to 306 million. This is under the budget of approximately 500 to 600 million rand that will be allocated. The goal is not to eliminate the contingent liability entirely. It is to maintain a predictable, sustainable level of liability while continuing to improve productions and attract investment. It should be noted that although the department is trying to expedite claim payments, there is the possible risk that this year's budget could be underspent. The DTIC has approximately 236 million rand available in this financial year. But even if adjudication committees resume on 1 October, only 6 months remain before the financial year end close on 31 March. Form Bs, on average, take between 10 and 18 months to process. On that timetable, much of this expenditure would only become payable in the next financial year. The result is that the department risks underspending its budget, with a significant portion of that 236 million potentially being surrendered back to Treasury instead of reaching the filmmakers and the productions it was allocated to. Now, it is important to note that the Deputy Director General and the Deputy Minister, our conversations with them have been to decrease these processing times. And if that can be done, then we can potentially make sure that all that money is allocated. We would like to decrease them to between 3 and 6 months, and we'll work with them on that. Before you is the agreed upon action plan. This is no longer simply a discussion about principles. It has dates attached to it. By 20 August, the short-term administrative work groups begin, including a 2-day workshop to streamline administration under the existing guidelines. By 25 August, work begins on the revised guidelines and transitional arrangements. By 12 September, the short-term processes must be produced and administrative protocol as well. By 30 September, the adjudication committees convene to process the approximately 703 million in Form B back.
Sorry, Delon, just reminding you of the time constraint. You've got about 3 or 4 minutes left.
Thank you very much, Chair. From 1 October to 27 November, there will be a short pause for new applications under the current guidelines. By 30 October, the revised guidelines and transitional provisions are to be made and completed. So as you can see, we have a workable plan. We want to thank the Deputy Director General, Justice Ngwenya, and the Deputy Minister, Zuko Godlimpi, for the intervention in the past week to bring about this change. We look forward to coming back in November to report on this progress. Now we have an important message from Academy Award-winning South African director Gavin Hood, who will tell us why and how very important this film incentive is and why the non-functioning of it has stopped an important film from being made.
Good day, honourable members of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee. I'm sorry I'm not able to be with you in person, but thank you for allowing me to address you today and for the attention you are giving to an issue that is critical to the future of our industry. 20 years ago, I had the great privilege of writing and directing Tsotsi. That film went on to win South Africa's first Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, but before that could happen, it had to be financed. The DTI production incentive was critical to us, as was the support of the IDC. Together, they helped us attract private investment, employ an all-South African cast and crew, and ultimately return money to the investors who had taken a risk on a South African story. That matters because investors who get their money back, of course, are willing to invest again. And Tsotsi was not my only experience of what the incentive could achieve. In 2015, again with the kind support of the DTI, I filmed Eye in the Sky entirely in South Africa. This was a $14 million production about drone warfare, with a story set in Britain, the United States, and Kenya. and yet every single frame was shot in South Africa. Hundreds of South African cast and crew were employed. Actors, producers, and crew were accommodated in local hotels. They ate in local restaurants. We rented vehicles and equipment. We constructed large sets using local contractors. That is what a successful film incentive does. It brings investment into South Africa and spreads that money far beyond the film set. Today, we are trying to do that again. Our new film, Juluka, tells the extraordinary story of Johnny Clegg and Sipho Mchunu, two young South Africans who came together across the racial divisions of apartheid through their shared love of music and dance. Juluka is ready to go. Our script is complete, our key investors are in place, our lead actors have been cast and have already spent a year learning to play Maskandi guitar and mastering traditional dance. The rights to Johnny and Sipho's music have been secured, a pre-sale to a broadcaster has been negotiated, and the IDC, which was such an important partner on Tsotsi, is preparing to join us again. Our intention is simple: go local. We want to finance this film in South Africa, shoot it here, employ an all South African cast and crew, and keep the intellectual property here. But we cannot proceed without DTI approval. The rebate forms part of our financing and is critical to unlocking other production funds. Our private investors have done their part. They've already committed substantial sums and funded the 5 years of work already required to bring Juluka to the point where it is ready to shoot. Now we need the DTI to do its part, because no film can wait indefinitely for a funding decision. There comes a point where a narrow window opens. The actors are available, the director is available, the financing is aligned, and the production is ready to go. If that window closes, actors take other jobs, financing commitments expire, and the package falls apart. And the consequences don't end with one lost film. Investors lose their money and their confidence. Crews lose work. The next South African film becomes harder to finance. And increasingly, we lose international investment. I work locally and internationally, and I'm hearing this personally. At film festivals and in conversation with producers, deciding where in the world to spend millions of dollars making their next film, I hear the same concern. They say South Africa is wonderful, but can we really rely on the incentive? We cannot allow that question to become the international answer. It damages our reputation. Because once investors stop believing that an incentive can be relied upon, they just take their money elsewhere. I've seen what happens when the system works, and I'm very grateful. It helped us make Tsotsi. It helped us bring a $14 million international production to South Africa with Eye in the Sky. And now Juluka is ready. I'm very grateful indeed to this committee for recognizing the urgency of the situation and for helping our industry find a way forward. What we need now is for the DTI to make the incentive work again, reliably, efficiently, and urgently, before our window closes. Thank you very much indeed.
Delon, your audio is off. Just switch on your audio, please.
Oh, there, thank you. Sorry. Oops. Chairperson, Honourable Deputy Minister, members of the committee, Deputy Director General, and officials of the department, thank you for your time and engagement today. We have come before this committee with the department with a sustainable, agreed-upon plan between us and the department and a clear timetable that will usher in a new era of the incentive. What matters now is implementation. We ask this committee to continue exercising its oversight and to hold all of us and the department, as well as the coalition, accountable to the commitments we have placed before you. South Africa has built the industry for over 116 years. We now have an opportunity to restore confidence, protect jobs, and get the cameras rolling again. I thank you.
Right, thanks to the industry for your contributions. Now I'm going to hand over to the department. 45 minutes. Who is representing the department this morning, please?
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Justice Ngwenya, the acting DDG within the incentive branch. I'm going to take you through the presentation.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Given the presentation by the industry, we've prepared this short presentation for the Portfolio Committee. The contents is going to look at the organizational structure of the incentive, the background, report back to committee, industry demands and status, liability progress, and the Form B that we've received. Thanks. Thank you, Chair. The structure of the incentive branch as a whole highlighted the services investment incentive, which is where GBS, that is Global Business Services, and the film incentive sits. The rest is the other programs that we have within the branch, as indicated by the Deputy Minister, that all the programs are under pressure in terms of budget. However, in this case, film and global business services have been hard hit by this challenge. Next slide, please. The background, the DTI has been a strong and stable propeller for the industry for over 20 years, having focused on the provision of cash incentive to international core productions, emerging and local productions. The strategic function of the incentive is to address the following market failures: low production activity, limited job opportunities, inhibited local and foreign investment environment, lack of sector transformation, low compliance with statutory and regulatory requirements. The expected impact is to increase the economic activity, to create job security, poverty reduction, inclusive and economic growth. Between 2016 and 17 financial year and 2025-26 financial year, the DTIC has distributed more than 4.4 billion to over 200 companies with qualified production spend of about 19.7 billion. Next slide, please. The Portfolio Committee meeting implementation action taken progress. The Portfolio Committee recommendations was that the chairperson noted the importance of exploring creative funding mechanism within the bounds of the law, including possible recapitalization options such as lottery funds and other alternative sources, whilst recognizing the country's fiscal constraints. He emphasized the need for the DTI and the National Treasury to engage constructively to provide certainty and restore investor confidence. In terms of implementation, innovative funding mechanisms were explored and shared with the industry, which was requested to submit additional funding proposal for further consideration by the department and its agencies. The status, the industry recommended that the current grant funding framework remain unchanged while supporting the continued provision of tax credit incentive for foreign productions. A cost-benefit analysis was submitted to the National Treasury for consideration, and the department is currently awaiting feedback. A meeting was held with the National Lotteries Commission to discuss proposed amendments to its mandate to enable support for non-NPOs, companies implementing social cohesion projects. However, the mandate of the NLC has not yet been amended. Discussion between the Commission and the DTIC executives are ongoing, and the outcome will be communicated once a decision has been reached and formally agreed upon. The Minister of DTIC and the National Treasury held engagements to explore additional financial support for the service sector, including a potential tax credit facility. Discussion between the two departments are still ongoing. To resolve outstanding issues, particularly those about the 2021 repudiation, The 2021 incentive repudiation were resolved through internal appeal processes, with approved incentive payments subsequently made to compliant companies. So that repudiation issue, yes, it was an issue, Chair, but it was resolved. And there were a lot of processes involved. Forensic audit, the B Commission was involved, and the official who was responsible for that is no longer within the unit now. So that problem has been resolved. To ensure that guidelines and eligibility criteria were developed in consultation with industry, meeting consultation on the 3rd and the 18th of June happened, and further engagement required with the industry to resolve the guideline criteria and requirements. That is still taking place, Chair. Hence the presentation of Dylan, indicating the engagements that we've had, which culminated in the agreed upon implementation plan that we've signed off, which we'll be using to ensure that we engage going forward in trying to resolve and find solution to these challenges that are facing the sector. Support for critical sectors should extend beyond financial assistance to include non-financial support, non-financial compliance support. The National Empowerment Fund will continue provide non-financial support to production companies, especially the emerging companies as referred to by Unati, that the support that is required there should be forthcoming over and above the financial support that the emerging companies might need. The chairperson encouraged industry to guide specific instances of maladministration or wrongdoing without engaging in witch hunt, and to raise concern responsibly to enable a proper investigation. The industry was encouraged to report any suspected maladministration through the available confidential reporting channels, which were shared during the Deputy Minister's engagement. To date, no reports of wrongdoing by the officials have been received from the industry. And the only specific report that we've received, Chair, it's with regards to the reference to Ms. Nelly Mulukwane, who is supposed to be now responsible for all the challenges that we're facing the program. And before then, we haven't had any specific report pointing to maladministration or wrongdoing. So that being the case, I mean, we could not do anything without any evidence of specific wrongdoing referring to a particular official. The immediate resumption of adjudication committee meetings. Meeting on the 18th of June, engage lagging producers on a weekly basis and settling firm individual deadline to expedite submissions. Industry stakeholders proposed that the unit formalize strict cutoff dates for outstanding materials. It was argued that the establishing a clear deadline would allow the department to officially reject permanently stalled projects, thereby cleaning up the pipeline and accurately freeing up budget for active 2024 applications. Lagging project productions are being engaged on a weekly basis to speed up the payment of claims and reduce contingent liability, which as at the end of June was reduced to approximately 255 million. Once this is cleared, the adjudication committee meeting will resume, subject to the agreement of the revised guidelines. The processing of pending applications. The industry requests that the pending application be processed. Pending application not yet processed due to capacity constraint, as current officials are processing claims on hand. This chairperson talks to the resources that the department is trying to put together to capacitate the unit given the demand, both on claims and application. Immediate verification of Form B's, commencement of principal photography. The industry requests that the DIC obtain and verify evidence of the commencement of principal photography and provide a status update on companies that elected to proceed with production at their own risk. That has been done, Chairperson. The establishment of working groups, meeting of 9 March, shareholder consultation model presented, awaiting feedback from the industry. Meeting on the 9th March, 2 working groups formed, administrative challenges, funding model, that was done. Short and medium term solutions, meeting of the 26th March, the Industrial Development Corporation, IDC, presented a cost-benefit analysis model with a 2-tier hybrid film incentive framework, balancing fiscal sustainability, global competitiveness, and sector stabilization. The meeting on the 3rd and 18th of June, the industry reinforced its complete rejection of the blended finance model, while the DTIC noted that severe national fiscal constraints require moving away from pure grant reliance in alignment with possible South Africa's participation at the Berlinale Film DSEC. Is requested that, where feasible, the future rebate framework be finalized by September or October 2026. The industry expressed strong reservation regarding the proposed soft loan model and indicated a preference for continuing the grant funding system for local and co-production, citing concerns that the loan model may disadvantage smaller production companies. It was proposed that foreign productions with a qualifying spend of 30 million migrate to a tax credit model to be implemented within the next 2 to 3 years. New funding models rejected by the industry. Thanks. Next slide, please. The regular guidelines interpretation workshops. Meeting on the 18th of June, in light of administrative capacity constraints, the DTIC could not support the industry's proposed 2-day workshop as an alternative. DTIC committed to a 1-day in-person working session co-hosted by NEF or IDC to systematically review and address barriers within the guidelines. The DTIC invited industry attorney to formally submit an alternative legal framework for clause 1.8. The industry proposed changing no right to payment to a conditional right to payment, subject to fulfilling all compliance criteria, with the DTIC will review with the state attorney. Date yet to be agreed on that. To date, no documentation or correspondence has been received by the legal unit. Strong accountability for incentive perceived shortcomings. Meetings on the 3rd June, discussion of the 2023 film guidelines. The DTIC team to evaluate the active list of approvals to officially terminate contracts that sit outside the legal 24-month claiming period. Claims relating to the approved project have been submitted, and engagements with the beneficiaries are ongoing, particularly with first-time claimants to facilitate the processing and finalization of their claims. Reduced red tape and a greater transparency. The meeting of the 3rd June, the Industry Coalition requested the DTIC to halt the practice of conducting a 100% audit Instead, the industry will bear the responsibility of submitting 100% audit completed by their independent external auditors, and the unit to do a sampling of between 50 and 70 testing to reduce the turnaround times. The department agreed that sampling would be conducted on new claims, provided the industry could demonstrate the 100% of the claims had been audited by an independent auditor. Whilst approach was accepted, the AG advised the department to continue exercising the necessary due diligence to ensure compliance and mitigate the risk of irregularities. On this one, Chairperson, it's something that we needed to tread carefully, because any claims that we entertain, we need to ensure that is properly verified. We are paying for what is due, and that is why the 100% verification was a requirement. So in this case, the industry decided that they would do the 100% verification, which would be done by independent parties, so that the unit within the department could then sample, but having a reliance on the 100% independent verification. The industry coalition agreed to a draft and submit a strict consequence framework. This framework will dictate the exact legal or administrative penalties to be handed down to any specific company or auditor if the unit spot checks uncover catastrophic financial misrepresentation or errors. The industry coalition to submit a detailed written memorandum covering specific administrative proposal, legal sections relating to the Companies Act and proposed audit penalty frameworks, awaiting detailed framework and memorandum from the industry. The coalition agreed to submit a memorandum and meeting presentation reflect a unified industry position and clarity which bodies are represented to avoid confusion in future engagements. Awaiting amendment, a memorandum that will indicate a unified industry position and its bodies. And I think this was covered by the first presentation, Chair, where the department, in one of our engagements at IDC, it came out that within the industry itself, there was no unity. And I think I had to request the actual industry body to just talk, so that when we engage, at least there's no confusion. We know we are talking to the right representative as a department. And that I'm saying, Chair, because just yesterday, I received a letter from the Black Independent film producers indicating that the department could be talking to the wrong representative of the industry. And that in itself created a confusion on our side, because all along we thought the people we are talking to are the right people. So that being the case, we would also urge the industry to get together, work around those differences, so that what is presented to the department to engage, it's the right people, and we are talking to the right people, to avoid things like what happened yesterday, late receiving a letter indicating that we are not talking to the right people. The Portfolio Committee Chairperson reiterated that the oversight role of the committee was to facilitate engagement between the DTIC industry stakeholders to ensure that existing jobs were retained, new jobs were created, and inclusive economic development was advanced. While the committee could not directly resolve administrative matters due to the principle of separation of powers. It had a duty to ensure that the department and industry work together to address the challenges. He welcomed the minister's commitment to ongoing engagements and requested that the committee be updated regularly, if through monthly or quarterly reports, particularly when key developments occurred in the sector. He stressed that film and television industry created both direct and indirect employment, especially within the SME sector, and that its economic value should not be underestimated. The chairperson noted the importance of exploring creative funding mechanisms within the bounds of the law, including possible recapitalization options such as the lottery fund and other alternative sources. While recognizing the country's fiscal constraints, he emphasized the need for the DTIC and the National Treasury to engage constructively to provide certainty and restore investor confidence. He further highlighted the need to strengthen communication between the department and stakeholders to resolve outstanding issues, particularly those about the 2021 repatriations, and to ensure that guidelines and eligibility criteria were developed in consultation with industry. He reiterated the committee's previous position that support for critical sectors should extend beyond financial assistance to include non-financial compliance as support. The chairperson urged both the department and the industry to prioritize areas of common ground and to approach negotiation constructively so that the sector would not deteriorate further. He encouraged the industry to guide specific instances of maladministration and wrongdoing without engaging in witch hunt, and to raise concerns responsibly to enable proper investigation. He agreed, however, that where specific concerns exist, these should be raised during engagements between the department and the industry so that the minister could follow due process. He emphasized that allegations should be handled fairly and investigated properly rather than aired irresponsibly. Next slide, please. Engagements were resumed with the industry from the 9th of March 2026, while the Deputy Minister held engagement with officials, the NEF and the IDC in preparation for engagement with industry. Creative funding mechanisms were explored and shared with the industry for further deliberation, and the industry was requested to present their options for further deliberations with the department and its agencies. A meeting was held with the National Lotteries Commission to discuss proposed amendments to its mandate to support non-NPO companies working on social cohesion. And the Minister of from the DTIC and National Treasury had held several discussions on how to further support the services sector with additional funding, including a possible tax credit. The 2021 repudiation were resolved through the internal appeal process with the incentive paid to companies. The National Empowerment Fund will continue to offer a non-financial support to production companies, as indicated, especially the emerging companies. During the meeting with the Deputy Minister, the industry was informed that any instances of maladministration should be reported for investigation through various available channels, and that information will be treated with the utmost confidentiality. The reporting channels were shared with the industry to date. The industry has not shared any information of maladministration or wrongdoing that is specific to specific officials. Next slide, please. The stakeholder meetings that was held on March 2026 with the Deputy Minister. Government remains committed to support the industry as key contributor to economic growth, job creation, and international investment. The need to resolve administrative and operational challenges affecting the processing of incentives, improving coordination between government departments involved in the creative economy, ensuring the current incentive framework remains competitive compared to other international markets. The department is engaging National Treasury and other stakeholders to explore reforms that could strengthen the long-term the long-term sustainability of the program. If you can, next slide, please. And then there's a stakeholder meeting that was held in 26 March, a presentation on the status of the contingent liability by the department was made. The IDC presented the cost-benefit analysis model, which had a two-tier hybrid incentive framework balancing fiscal sustainability, the global competitiveness and sector stabilization. That was the model that was presented by IDC, where they were looking at different options in terms of how to support the industry. A presentation on the status of the contingent liability was made, and there was a first tier where I was looking at the tax credit for the 30 million and above international productions. And the second tier was looking at soft loans for the same. The purpose there was to compete for global film spending and build a sustainable domestic industry. Predictable, bankable fiscal, lighter, strong fiscal return on investment, capital recycling. The effective incentive rate was seen to be between 30 and 40% of the tax credit. And the second tier was looking at the 30%, no interest for 24 months, then 6% on approved amount thereafter. Next slide, please. And the benefit of the two tiers, that would be job creation, boost local employment, crew actors, extras, and vendors. And the economic impact would be the production spend on hotels, restaurant, equipment rentals, tourism boost, popular film location, attract visitors, industry grows, encourage long-term infrastructure studios, post-production and facilities. The facility will impact production where QSEP was less than 30 million. From a risk perspective, the concessional loan model significantly reduced the fiscal risk exposure relative to grant-based instruments, shifting government participation from transfer-based support to structured managed financing. Soft loan benefits that would stretch public resource through recoverable financing, supporting employment and economic activity while minimizing long-term fiscal exposure, encouraging IP ownership retention through a shared risk instrument. So those were the benefits that were perceived that would come from the proposal that was presented by IDC. Next slide, please. Can we move to the okay? The stakeholder meeting that was held on the 13th of April, following the assessment of the presentation made by the DTIC and IDC. Both independent Black film makers collective and the Save South African Film and TV Jobs Coalition presented their respective proposal. The industry expressed strong reservation regarding the proposed soft loan model and indicated a preference for continuing the grant funding system for local and co-production, citing concerns that loan model may disadvantage smaller companies. It was proposed that foreign production with a qualifying spend of 30 million migrate to a tax credit model to be implemented within the next 2 to 3 years. There was consensus on the urgent need to capacitate the film unit to enable efficient processing of application and claims currently on hand. The DTIC and industry are to present a compelling case to National Treasury to secure additional funding. Industry requested feedback on a meeting held with National Treasury and Canal Plus on the multi-choice matter. The industry requested that the adjudication committee resume operation to commit 236 million for claims to be submitted during the current financial year. Industry stakeholders propose that a formal statement reaffirming continuation of the film incentive program be issued to restore and strengthen the investor confidence. Next slide, please. The stakeholder meeting of the 8th of May, industry stakeholders proposed a formal statement reaffirming continuation of the film incentive program be issued to restore and strengthen the investor confidence in the sector. Following the assessment of the presentation made by the DTIC and IDC, both IBF and Save South Africa Film and TV Jobs Coalition presented their respective proposal. Save South Africa Film Coalition expressed a strong reservation about the proposed loan model, a preference for continuing grant system for local and co-production, citing the same concerns of disadvantaging small players. It was then agreed that a tax credit model for qualifying spend of 30 million would be applied. There was also a consensus on an urgent need to capacitate. Sorry, I think I'm reading on the same slide. Could you please move the slide? Because I've already gone through this slide. On the 3rd of June, the meeting that was held, and the primary objective of that meeting was to discuss the 2023 film guidelines. The coalition changed the agenda and presented a document titled DTIC Meeting Memorandum with the following focal area: administrative challenges, focus on cutting down excessive paperwork, clarifying the legal basis for administrative requirement, and reducing turnaround times, addressing immediate administrative bottlenecks, and the current 2023 guidelines are deemed unworkable. Audit requirements and factual findings report. The DTIC requested 100% as opposed to 70 or 50% testing on qualifying South African production expenditure. It was proposed that industry perform a reimbursable 100% audit while the department would conduct the 50 to 70% verification audit process. Next slide, please. The meeting of the 18th June, it discussed the 2023 film and TV guidelines. The challenge raised by industry in relation to the 2023 guidelines were unpacked and discussed based on letters submitted to the department. Further capacity constraints were highlighted as a key challenge affecting application processing and the resumption of adjudication committee meetings. An update on the online application portal and the proposed implementation timelines were discussed. Next slide, please. The contingent liability, following the suspension of the Education Committee, the business unit continued to settle valid claims with the objective of reducing the contingent liability. The contingent liability stood at approximately 2 billion as disclosed in the annual financial statements for the year ended March 2021. From September 2025 to date, the contingent liability has shown a consistent downward trend from 679 to 473 million, with a further decline to 255 by June 2026, as depicted by the graph below. Next slide, please. Before I get into the slide, Chair, I would like to maybe talk about the contingent liability as an indicator that was actually guiding us as to when to start adjudication as requested by the industry. It was agreed that we cannot allow the contingent liability to run away. As you might have seen the graph there, at some point it was sitting at 2 billion. So it was important to stabilize the program, try and make space for the new productions that required adjudication, because adjudication would have meant committing funds, but also we had to be prudent and ensure that the funds that we commit, it's funds that we have. And as such, with the ballooning contingent liability, that was a point that restricted us or inhibited us in making the decision as to when do we start adjudicating. So we needed to work on that figure to bring it down as opposed to increase it further, because that would have been seen as being reckless and also going against the act that governs the public finance that we are giving to the industry, Chair. So on this slide, Chair, it's to do with the Form Bs. Form Bs, it's an indication from the industry that they've started production, basically. So that's an indication. So these charts indicates what we've received. If you look at the bar on the black emerging productions, we've got 5 that were submitted and 15 are still outstanding, meaning they've started, but we haven't received them. And then on the foreign one, we've received about 31, and 20 are outstanding. And then on the South African production, we've received 6 and 15 outstanding. 1 was withdrawn. On the completion side, on the black emerging, I think 4 are completed and 1 is in progress. Foreign side, 21 completed and 10 are in progress. And then on the South African production, 5 are completed and 1 is in progress. And then in terms of estimated incentive amount, if I go back to the Form Bs, on the black emerging, the estimated figure is about 54.8. On the foreign, it's about 501.7. And on the South African production, it's about 6.8. And then in total, it's about 563.3. Whilst on the completed, under black emerging, we've got 50.5. and then the foreign it's about 40.7 million, and the South African production is about 323.2, and the total it's 414.5. Next slide, please. The way forward, the department will appoint an independent strategic facilitator to work collaboratively with the film and audiovisual industry collectively in the development of the new guidelines. This intervention follows concerns raised by the coalition regarding an impasse in its engagement with the film incentive director. The strategic facilitator will establish and facilitate the various workstream groups to support structured stakeholder engagement, to support the ongoing engagement. The workstream groups will comprise of representatives from the department, DSEC, DCDT, NFVF, IDC, NEF, and all industry association to ensure an inclusive, transparent, and consultative process. The facilitator will develop a detailed implementation plan, including clear milestone and timelines to guide the review and finalization of the revised incentive framework. Regular progress report will be provided to the portfolio committee on trade and industry and competition, including updates on stakeholder consultation, key outcomes, and the implementation of agreed actions. Next slide, please. Thank you. But Chair, before I close, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee for inviting us, as well as the coalition, because this has been a very difficult and challenging engagement where we're trying to find each other in a sense that the industry was of the view that the department doesn't want to open and start adjudicating, whilst the department is also faced with the challenge of trying to balance the requirement as per PFMA in terms of managing the budget and making sure we minimize the contingent liability. The issue here, Chair, is that the program has been so successful in the past and popular that the demand far outstrip the supply. So the challenge that the department is faced with is trying to come up with a solution that will support the industry in a sustainable way going forward with certainty, so that when they do engage international or foreign investors, the message that goes out there should be the message that investors can rely on and be able to plan based on a sustainable framework and a package that will be there in years to come. And this is the challenge where we find ourselves in, as indicated by the Deputy Minister, that the resources that we use to support the program don't come from the DTIC. We also get it from the National Treasury. So in a way, this challenge, it's a government challenge as opposed to a DTIC challenge. Yes, in terms of administration, we had our weaknesses. We were challenged, which we are trying to fix together with the industry. But I think in terms of funding the program, here we would need the assistance of the committee to help us engage government in terms of raising further resources to support the industry, or come up with programs, be it tax incentive so that at the end of the day, the challenges that the industry is faced with now becomes a thing of the past, because we would have a program in place that the industry can be assured it's sustainable and it provide certainty to the would-be investors in the creative sector going forward. That would be my plea, Chair, and to say we have reached an agreement as indicated by Dylan with a clear framework that we will follow in conjunction with the suggestion from the department that we would involve the services of a facilitator so that we can have any disagreement resolved without resorting to the portfolio committee going forward. And I think with that, Chair, I would like to thank you.
Thank you, Acting DG, for that presentation. We're running pretty good timing. I'm going to suggest that we have a comfort break until 11:30. I see that the chairperson is back on the platform. So with your permission, Chair, I'm going to hand over to you to take the meeting forward once we reconvene at 11:30.
No problem. I've been back since 9:35. Thank you very much.
So we'll see everybody back on the platform at 11:30. Thank you.
much, Honorable Chance. Let's welcome both the presentations. Andre, can you just check if everyone is back so that we can proceed?
Chair, most of the members are on the platform, Chair. No one has indicated yet.
Okay.
Has raised their hands yet.
I assume the next item is deliberations.
Correct, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll now allow members of the portfolio to raise their hands. Whilst they are trying to raise their hands, I am completely surprised having listened to the two presentations, and I hope that will be clarified during this session, because the first presentation from the industry points to the extreme, and the second presentation from the department points to the point that to the fact that there is something that is being agreed on the table. So these are extreme that I want us to reconcile, so that when we leave the meeting, we're quite certain about what is the fact and what is not. So that's the first thing that I've made as an observation. And the second thing, which the Deputy Minister raised, is that we are dealing broadly with institutional issues here, because we will not afford, as this important body, to focus on individuals unless facts are brought that have to do with them, other than systemic inefficiencies that we have identified when we're dealing with the committee. So I want us to be very clear, so that you don't sit the whole Parliament of the Republic and discuss one person who's problematic beyond her own imagination. And by no means anyone is protecting anyone. So if in this meeting, so that we don't go that route, if in this meeting we don't get facts, what did this person do that is her own doing, which constitute maladministration, fraud, corruption, and every other negative thing? I would want us to really focus on the systemic problems that we're facing as an industry to ensure that we can resolve them. And finally, as you come back as members, you just have to tell us, if there were 9 points as stated, how many are agreed to, how many are outstanding, and what are the timelines, so that we are not all over in terms of our discussion. So I will now allow the members to come through, and then we can take it. We can take our discussion from there. Andre,
Chair,
you
Mr.
also.
Green and Mr.
Honorable.
Mslazo Webster has raised. Ms. Piri has also raised.
Okay, in that order, Honorable Tring, Honorable Sazo Webster, Honorable Pierre.
And Mr. Chance.
Honorable Chance, Honorable Musukas. You.
Thank you, Chair. Good to good to have you back. Though you were on the platform not long after we started. Chair, let me just indicate firstly that the ACDP appreciates, as you I think correctly indicated, that there does appear to be obviously a kind of a dichotomous view. The department presenting its view and the industry presenting theirs, and there obviously are variances in between. Excuse me. But Chair, the ACDP appreciates the progress that has been made by the department in reducing contingent liability in keeping with the PFMA, and also the attempts to remove capacity constraints affecting the industry. Obviously also including the creation of the creative funding mechanism as raised by the department, using other funding mechanisms from our sister departments. But here, all of this that has been raised, all of these initiatives that have been raised by the department, I think must result in the resolving of the impasse. And the impasse, I think, was mentioned by the Deputy Minister in his introduction. It must result in the resolving of the impasse, reviving the industry, and growing the industry to its fullest potential. So, Chair, I think that as the ACDP, we call on the industry also to forward, whether it's information that the department has asked for and not received, memorandums asked for and not received, or communication that has been waited for or waiting upon the department, waiting upon the industry for this communication, so that the unresolved areas can be dealt with speedily. And Chair, let me just indicate that we also support the film and TV's recommendations with regards to the resumption of adjudication, the processing of application approvals, the establishing of a dedicated film fund, and key, Chair, what our very own President of South Africa has called for, the reduction of red tape. And I think bureaucracy sometimes is one of the tools being used to limit growth and limit the expansion of our economy. And so we also support the resumption of the tax rebate, the removing of uncertainty around tax rebates, which has resulted in the loss of millions of rands within the industry and to our economy. Chair, then perhaps one of the areas raised was that of the role of Mrs. Molokwane. And I think it has to be looked into. It has been raised, it must be looked into, but the audi alterum partem principle must apply. She also needs to have a right to reply to some of the allegations that have been raised. I think very clearly also the dilatory or the Stalingrad tactics, which the industry have raised, cannot be tolerated. And it cannot be that after some 32 years of democracy in South Africa, the worst affected within the industry are your black filmmakers, purely as a result of the administrative failures that have been raised. Chair, maybe then just finally, the demand-supply balance or conundrum, which drives adjudication and incentives within the industry, must be resolved. And we understand that from the department's view, they were looking at reducing the contingent liabilities in order to ensure that the demand that is there from the industry is met by supply from the department. But this challenge or this balance, Chair, it has to be resolved for the sake of the industry, because a failure to do so will see the collapse of the industry, which none of us want to see. Thank you, Chair.
Number two.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the industry for the presentation, as well as to the department for the responses that we have had from them. I'm hoping to not be long. Suffice to say, given the period through which we have been engaged in this matter, given some of the commitments and expectations that have been on the table, one would hope that this would be a session where we're able to get some firm and immediate outcomes, particularly around the adjudication and its resumption, particularly around a plan to process the existing pipeline that is funded and that's capacitated, and particularly around an agreement, given the existing backlog, and for the longer term, a redesign of the incentive to ensure that it is meeting the objectives of the industry, for growth in the industry, for employment creation in the industry. Starting with, maybe let me start here by saying that the reduction in the contingent liability is welcome, and it's progress that must be acknowledged. But progress really in paying historic liabilities, it's not the same as restoring a functioning incentive. And listening to all the conversation today, it's very clear that part of the biggest issue that we have is that there isn't a functioning incentive. And in May, it was on 6 May particularly, that I had given a question to the minister, who told Parliament that 31 approved applications remained unpaid, and he said that the department was in a position to finalize the arrears and begin adjudicating new applications, and that was the 6th of May. Today, though, the department says adjudication will resume once 255 million rand liability is completely cleared. And I want to know if I'm hearing this correctly. Then that means that, we have a misalignment in what has been communicated by the minister and in what we're hearing today. And those are some of the things that really must be clarified, aligned upon, and agreed upon when it comes to this issue of the incentive. The minister had told Parliament that adjudication could begin. And, to now have 2 further conditions being added by the department means that there are further questions that must then be answered. And that must be what changed after that commitment that took place. And why must the entire liability be eliminated before new adjudication begins? I think that's an important question, because as we can see, the issue of adjudication sits at the center of some of the challenges that exist between the industry and the department. And why are applications under the existing guidelines being made dependent on agreements about future guidelines? So I think that's going to be important. And I mean, ideally, when you want something that's progressive, you want specifics, and you'd hope that when we leave today, we have at the very least a date upon which there's an independent facilitator that is going to start the process of ensuring that all these issues that have to be met are made, and that ultimately they are met as well. So a second issue has been the department reporting that 30 productions have already been completed and that there's 12 that remain in progress, and that represents an estimated 414 million, I think it was. So it seems there's productions that have proceeded, costs that have been incurred, and that there's jobs that are depending on these productions. So we need to distinguish between the valid completed claims that must be paid and then Form B applications that are ready for adjudication. And also to distinguish between incomplete matters that are actually waiting information, because there seems to be a lot of, at this point, confusion and sometimes integration between all these various and different issues. Thirdly, the department refers to pending applications having not been processed as a matter of capacity. But then what we should be seeing in a presentation like the one we saw today is a staffing plan that shows additional capacity, a date by which we'll see this capacity. And then you can have an independent facilitator that helps repair the relationship and redesign the guidelines. But because the facilitator would not process claims. So we need to know what is being added to the film units when for a long time, any of the responses that you get are contingent upon the capacitation or increased capacity in being able to turn things around. I also noticed in some of the presentation and engagement that there's confusion between grants and incentives. So we really have to be careful about ultimately replacing grants for emerging and local filmmakers with loan, and with confusing the rebate and grant process and the models upon which we are working. And this is because emerging filmmakers don't necessarily have predictable revenues or assets or distribution agreements already, which would mean they qualify for loans or able to repay loans. So it would, in that case, mean that there has to be very, very proper impact assessment before replacing any program with debt when it comes to the models that we're looking at. Lastly, I really just want to say that when it comes to the deadlock itself, the appointment of an independent facilitator is constructive as a proposal, but it's meaningless if we as Parliament don't attach strong deliverables to it. We need a date for the appointments of this facilitator. There needs to be deadlines upon which there'll be delivery on outstanding matters that need to be looked at. And as I always say, we're at a deadlock now and we have a current issue now that is a crisis, but there's a reality that the industry, all in all, we need to be continuing to engage on how we frame and how we establish some of the support that the industry is given in order for it to be sustainable. It needs to be framed in such a way that supports the growth of an ecosystem, of economics ecosystem that truly contributes to this economy and to this country in the way that this industry does, and can even largely so. So we have to make sure that post today, whatever outcomes we have to leave with dates and not just other processes. We have to clear valid claims. We have to close dormant files. We have to make sure that adjudication is restarted, and we have to capacitate the film unit, because we can't keep coming back to the story of there is no capacity. But most importantly, there must be movement, and there must be implementation, and there must be deliverables that are measurable. Otherwise, we could be here a few months from now, and all we would have is the industry dealing with even more substantive crises, dealing with even more loss of opportunity, loss of jobs. And that's not only just a crisis for the industry, it's a crisis for the economy as a whole.
Number 3.
Good morning, Chair. I hope it's me. If I'm not mistaken, you
Yes,
can clarify.
it's you.
Yeah.
It's you.
Good morning once again to colleagues and to the two presentations that we received. Let me put a disclaimer, Chair, that as an alternate, I might be at the back foot, but I want to take this opportunity. Firstly, when I had the presentation from the film industry, there were a lot of questions in my head, but when it comes to also with the presentation from the department, it shows that it's a progress report. You got this report before, then the department is giving you a progress as well as the film industry. But mine will be just short. With one thing, the question to the DM, to say, DM, I believe you are the one who has been given delegation to this entity or the film industry. And when they presented, they also raised the fact that you met with them. What I wanted to double check with you and the department, with the recommendation that they did towards the end of their presentation, is it what we have agreed upon with timelines? And if yes, is it implementable? Is it meetable in terms of the legislation and the principles and the guidelines that you utilize in the department? Because I believe if it's a presentation or it's in the agenda today, we had to listen to the progress report, as they're saying they will come back and report to us. We want to understand currently what they've presented and what you have presented. Where does it meet? Because it looks like there's a bit of a missing link. You were supposed to speak to what they've recommended from their side as a department. But then because there's a missing link, you did not speak about it, and you also acknowledge the red flags or the red tapes of the incentive versus what other colleagues they were talking about, the grants or a fund. My issue is that I want to check really, is it what they are requesting or what they've presented to us? Is it implementable on your side? If not, what will be the red tapes as well? And when it comes to Parliament, what is it more that you'll want us to deal with and assist you as a department to try and unlock the bedlocks that you have? Is it issues of legislation that needs to come to us and we deal with it and assist you to unlock the bedlocks, or is just your internal issues that we need us to make an oversight together with your executives to say, by this time you need to have finalized so much? But Chair, as I've said, as an alternate, I might be at the back foot and not understanding better with what we have engaged previously. But let me take this opportunity and just pause there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Number 4.
Thank you, Chair. And again, apologies for my croaky voice due to this head cold. Thank you again for the presentations. I just want to start by looking at the DTIC slide where it talks about background. It says the strategic function of the incentive is to address the following market failures: low production activity, limited job opportunities, inhibited local and foreign investment environment, lack of sector transformation, and low compliance with statutory and regulatory requirements. Now, that to me is a total mischaracterization of the industry that we've been talking about this morning. It looks like the DTIC is coming in to rescue a failing industry where the market is distorted and it's failing. And that completely, in my view, misrepresents what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with the failure of an incentive program to compete with equivalent international incentive programs that have become the international norm for sustaining and promoting film industries in particular countries. And that is really what I think could be one of the root problems here, is that we have an attitudinal mindset disjuncture between the industry and the department. And I think that this is something which could be at the base of why we have a problem. So I just want to make that point in my opening remarks. Going through the detail, we see a lot of things like, and I just want to list them, the cost-benefit analysis that was referred to on slide 5. I think it would be very instructive for us to see what that cost-benefit analysis looks like. And then, of course, we have to understand, as Hunati Malunga was referring to, the difference in the terminology used. Now, we must remember that the DTIC is not a tax-raising entity. The Treasury is a tax-raising entity, well, SARS is, and the money comes from the Treasury and it's handed out to the departments. It's called a grant because the money is not expected to be paid back. Now, I understand that in the broader economic ROI terms, we are seeing a return on investment, but that's why it's not regarded as anything other than a grant by the DTIC, because the film industry isn't expected to pay the money back to the department. So I think that we need to just be sure about our terminologies, and it does again reveal a difference in opinion between the Treasury and the DTIC on what constitutes a valid incentive and what are the benchmarks for when an incentive is worth paying out and when it is not. You know, is an industry standard of 2.8 or whatever it is versus 5.1 ROI? You know, when does an incentive become worthwhile paying out? And it doesn't just cover the film industry; it covers all the different industries in which the DTIC is supporting. And I do take the point of the Deputy Minister that on an inflation-adjusted budget, the DTIC's budget should be 18 billion, not 10 billion. So, well, I do understand the constraints that you're facing, and they are real. But again, it just goes to the broader problem that this economy is not growing sufficiently. We don't have economic growth that is necessary to fund the programs that are needed to grow the economy. So we have a bit of a chicken and egg here, which is why, again, I think the department has to look very carefully and scrutinize the cost benefit and the ROI across all of its programs. Of course, that was something that was discussed last week in the colloquium. Now, when it comes to the issue of wrongdoing, I think that, again, this may be a definition of terms. We're not talking about misconduct necessarily by this official, Ms. Molakwani. But if you look at the graphs, starting with the contingent liability of 2 billion rand 5 years ago, I mean, how did it actually get to the point where there was a 2 billion rand contingent liability? And then if we see the graphs continual downward trend of monies paid out to the industry, that is not wrongdoing. That is not even maladministration. It's simply not achieving performance targets. So in any organization where you would expect there to be consequences for performance decline, that seems to me to be sufficient grounds to ask the questions, who is responsible for this? And it may not even be necessary to point the finger at one person, but more broadly to other members of the department who have been responsible for this cataclysmic failure of the film incentive program over the past 5 years. I would also like to know whether the idea of a strategic facilitator has been shared with the industry, or whether it was just a sort of last-minute thought that was thrown into the presentation. Because in the timescale, the very detailed timescale that the industry presented, Mr. Bakker presented at the end of the presentation, there's no reference to that strategic coordinator at all, facilitator at all. So I'd like to ask, have those discussions taken place? And if not, why not? And as one of the members asked, what are the timeframes here? Because you can't just have a strategic intervention without any concrete outcomes and timeframes. The other thing which is quite evident from these presentations is that the two entities, the department and the industry, do seem to be talking past each other. And what I would request from the two parties is that you have a consistent reporting platform or reporting framework format so that you're able to assess each other's performance and outcomes in terms of your commitments on equal terms. Because at the moment, we don't have that. We have a whole bunch of slides from one side and a whole bunch of slides from another side. They don't seem to be comparing eggs with eggs. There's no like-for-like comparison directly, which means it's difficult to actually see the wood from the trees. And I think it's very important for this committee and for your continued working together to get that format of reporting on the same basis. Otherwise, you're always going to be talking past each other. Then, when it comes to the issue of the letter, now it does concern me that the acting DG refers to this letter without indicating who it comes from and what the actual allegations were. He seems to be implying via the letter that the industry is not speaking with one voice. But we heard that I think it was 17 out of 18 of the members of the Save SA Film Jobs voted in favor of removing Mr. Molakwani, and the other one, the abstention was the Actors Guild, not the actual black film producers. So I'd like to see that letter, and I'm sure that other members of this meeting would like to see that letter. And it's important that if there is an issue that some people feel that they're not being represented, they need to sit down and thrash this out with other members of the industry so that there is a way in which maybe allegations of being ignored are taken up. Then this raises another question relating to whistleblowers, which is a problem in many departments within, or at least many entities within the DTIC. I don't believe that there is sufficient protection for whistleblowers. And that is something which I think the department is absolutely forced to deal with as an institutional matter, because it's not good enough to say, come and share us what your problems are, we'll take it from there. There have to be protections, because we all know that whistleblowers get victimized. They often have physical, if not financial, threats made against them by powerful interest groups. And if there are allegations that need to be addressed, those whistleblowers need to be able to make those allegations in an environment of complete safety. Then my final question is relating to the figures on the penultimate slide from the department, which is that supposedly there are 6 films responsible for 323 million rand of incentive spend. Now that's an enormous amount of money for 6 films. The incentive amount would suggest that we're talking about over 1 billion, 1 to 5 billion rand of actual production cost. I'd like to get information from the department as to what those films are, and why is it that such a massive amount, the disproportionate amount of the incentive scheduled for payment is for such a small number of films. I think other members have raised other important questions, for example, relating to capacity constraints. I do think we need answers on those things, because there's continual reference to capacity constraints, but nothing actually concrete as to how many vacancies are there, how many people have been replaced, how many people haven't been replaced, and what is being done to actually fill those vacancies. But I think, generally speaking, the presentation from the industry was very convincing. It was fact-based, it was evidence-based, it had the testimonies of prominent people in the industry. It's not like the industry is, saying that we've been treated badly without any due cause. And I think that the industry deserves to be supported. And if we can achieve those sorts of outcomes that Mr. Bakker presented by November, this committee will have achieved its objectives. And finally, the last point is that this adjudication committee has to start sitting again. It's just simply not achieving anything by having the committee sit on its hands. And if it doesn't start sitting again, then questions must be asked as to, are there some ulterior motives? Is there something going on in the background which is preventing this incentive from getting back on its feet? So yeah, thank you, Chair. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Are there further hands, Andre?
Yes, Chair.
Ms. Musikatsi, Chair.
Yes, Ms. Musikatsi.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to the DM and all in the meeting. Chairperson, the questions that I noted here has already been asked by the members, but I just wanted to put emphasis on the issue of capacity constraint in the department. And then already Mr. Chance and Webster has already touched on it in terms of a plan which will indicate as to when will this be addressed. The other issue that I also had, because I came late into the meeting, is the issue of that was presented in terms of the industry rejecting the blended finance model. I just want to check with the department as to, is there any other mechanisms that they have put in place to actually assist in terms of the issue of the blended finance model that was rejected by the industry? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank
We
you.
have no further hands, Chair.
Sorry?
There are no further hands.
Okay. DM, I'm sure you're still on the line because I've carefully listened to both presentations. I'm not sure whether you want the department to just come in and then you come in later just to summarize, because for me, there seemed to be some progress, but I don't know the scale or the extent of the progress or on issues where you found each other in the engagements that started immediately after the team came from Parliament. So I don't know, maybe let's start with the DTIC just to clarify some matters, and then the industry will come in. Mr. Ngwenya? Is it Mr. Ngwenya was presenting, right?
Yes, Chair. Thanks, Chair. I think, Chair, maybe just to clear the confusion, the department has agreed with the industry on the framework that Dylan was presenting when he was going through his presentation. The agreed upon framework. That is the framework that the department has agreed with the industry to use in terms of engaging with each other. Because we felt if we come to before Parliament at divergent views, that won't help us. Yes, we have challenges. We have been engaging. There are areas where we have not been agreeing, but that doesn't mean we are not finding each other. So the plan that honorable members saying it's not clear whether we've reached an agreement or not. Indeed, we have reached an agreement, and that's what was presented by Dylan as the last presenter from the industry. It's got dates, it's got figures. Even then, when we're engaging, we indicated that that being the case, it would be a framework within which we work, which is flexible. It can be adjusted, as one honorable member indicated that government might have specific timelines. So is the plan presented by the industry aligns with us. The spirit of the engagement and agreement was that we need to find a framework within which we can engage and try and get solutions to this challenge. On the issue of resumption of adjudication meetings, that plan also covers that. Our target is to have the meeting starting by end of August, which is this month, beginning of September, but it's catered for in that framework. And the framework, it's a framework that we've co-signed. I've signed it, and the chairperson of the industry or the coalition has also signed it. So that's what we've agreed upon, Chair, just in a nutshell, just to address if maybe there's any confusion as to whether have we agreed on something. Indeed, we have agreed on a framework that we will be using to try and address the challenges faced by the program, which are in extension are faced by the industry. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I then hand over to the industry?
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the committee for all of their inputs, and thank you to the department for giving us their feedback as well. Chair, I just want to go back to just stress this issue of Berlinale Film Festival and the urgency upon which our country faces in terms of being able to meet the requirements of being a country in focus, and as well as having a good story to tell as the South African film industry to attract those foreign investments as well. This is a critical point and a world stage of performance for us in order for us to bring in those productions and bring in that foreign investment as well. Chair, I don't want to take up most of your time. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Unati, just to also sum up her points as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just a few notes from me. On the letter, I think the Honourable Chance has raised the point, but on the letter received, I just want to make the point, Chair, that You know, there's not one organization that represents the entire industry. That is why we are a coalition here. Secondly, the organization that sent the letter is a member of the Federation, which is also part of the coalition. So we are as dumbfounded, we don't know the content of that letter, and yet it's been presented or referenced here in the parliamentary meeting. The last thing I'd like to say on that point is it's very important that government does not get involved in how the industry organizes itself in any manner whatsoever. I think Simon set out at the beginning of our presentation the wide representation that is found in this coalition. And that's all I have to say on that. I think it's important that government does not get involved in how the industry represents itself, because the fragmentation of our sector is a long-standing government narrative. And as we stand and come here before you today, we are organized. So we don't agree with any kind of fragmentation of our sector. The other point I wish to raise, Chair, has already been raised about the whistleblowing protections. This is an incentive. People don't want to be blackballed. Already the lack of trust that has accumulated over the years, people don't even, I remember in 2020 when we were trying to get relief funding out to people wouldn't even give their details for that. That is the lack of trust that exists here. So people need to know, and we've told the DTIC that, but they don't come back here and say, here is a process for whistleblowing, besides the whistleblowing line that everybody can use. We need a process that protects our filmmakers in order to bring the stories of wrongdoing out. That's in addition to the judgments that we've put before you. We've quoted before you. If we'd like to go into the judgments and what independent courts have held about the behavior of this department and its officials, we can also present that, including arbitrations, etc. How much more proof is needed about how the officials of this department have behaved? And it is simply a matter of performance management. We are not being unreasonable. We have given it time. We have asked, we have gone out and we have voted on the matter. And it's as simple as that. The question must be asked. Who is responsible for that? Today, the DTIC comes and it talks about they have to adhere to the PFMA, but we're from a backlog of 2 billion, a contingent liability of 2 billion. So when was that breached? How come it was breached at that point? And why is the PFMA a concern now? Who has let it get here? I think those are important questions. Lastly, Chair, sorry, I do want to agree with Honourable Chance on a reporting mechanism that is consistent. I think that's a very good recommendation. And so I will hand over from Delon. That is all from me. Thank you very much to the committee, and thank you, Chair, for hearing us today.
Thank you very much to my colleague, Unathi Mahlangu. If you would indulge me for a second, I would like to just reshare the framework, if they can grant me sharing rights so the committee can see. I don't know if that is possible, but I will request it, and then the committee can see one more time what we have agreed to. Is that possible? Yes, I have sharing rights there. Thank you. So before you now is the agreed upon plan that we have with the department. You can see that there are dates, there are required outputs and commitments. So we will be holding ourselves and the department to those dates, and hopefully be back here in November reporting on a good story. So, we will be working hard with the department to meet those dates and make sure that there is actual action and that movement is taken forward. We have a signed agreement with them. So the difference between this meeting and the previous meeting is there is an actual agreement. Again, I have to stress that, this could have happened months ago. There's nothing new. There was budget available from April. These meetings could most certainly have happened. Just to answer some of the questions that were put forward there on a strategic facilitator, no, that hasn't been discussed with us. However, that is, I'm sure, after liaising with my colleagues, that is something that we would be open to, but the facilitator would most certainly have to be mutually agreed to. On the capacity constraints, I think a very important thing to note is 10 years ago, the incentive was working extremely efficiently. We have to think a little bit outside the box and look to cut red tape, which we have already spoken about, which will drastically decrease the amount of work that officials would have to do. The current guidelines have become too cumbersome on everyone. You've heard that from experienced filmmakers like Anand Singh, and you've also heard it from Gorundwana, our young emerging black filmmaker, who has said how difficult it is. So that red tape has to be cut, and we will be working with the department to do that. On the last point, one of the honourable members raised earlier, the blended finance model is a rejected model, as in terms of being a supplement or replacement for the incentive system. We should not change things that are working. The incentive program has worked in the past. We are confident that once we implement these changes, it will work again. The blended finance model, we are in complete disagreement with. It is not sustainable at all. We are of the opinion that if that is implemented, it will add to a false narrative of the industry not being sustainable. So we will work within this action plan. We will come back and report. And I once again want to thank yourself, the chairperson, the honourable portfolio committee members, as well as the honourable deputy minister and the director general for their time. And we are hoping to be back here in a few short months to tell a good story. I thank you all.
Thank you. DM, do you want to come in?
Thanks very much, Chairperson. Well, there's not much to say except what Dylan just reflected on. We have to try stick to that agreed upon plan with those dates that are committed there, so that we minimize friction. As long as everyone is working around a common plan, it's easier to minimize friction. And that by November, we should be reporting something better. Yes, Chair, you are correct. There is progress being made. It's just that the pace at which things are progressing, it's not at the degree of acceleration that the industry players would like to see. And that's a point that is acceptable from my part, that we could speed up on progress. And I think that work plan with those timelines is a step in the right direction. I had suggested that we need to work on something like this from early on so that we could hold each other accountable. The other point is that the more structural issues we will still be pressing together with the DFIs and the National Treasury to try see if there is no way to give us a bit of a better runway from a fiscal allocation point of view, so that we could put this thing to bed and focus on restructuring the incentive to enhance the performance of the South African film sector. And the final point is that we appreciate very well the importance of the film industry in keeping alive South Africa's cultural display, both domestically and internationally. It gives us an opportunity to showcase who we are, what we are, the stories we have, the stories we want to tell. but it also acts as a good tourism channel as well. But in a different day, we will discuss how it will also be a strategic marketing conduit for some of South Africa's export products as well, to market them abroad. So the centrality of the film industry to South Africa's prosperity and its growth as a competitive destination is a commonly shared perspective, that we need to improve its competitiveness, we need to improve its appeal, and fixing these technical bottlenecks is one of the things that we take seriously, and we will do our level best to sort out. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, DM. So I have a sense that there is progress that is being made, and the agreements on the table in terms of timelines and what we need to work on. There seemed to be one sticking point which probably we need to apply ourselves on. I've just been made even aware, which was a bit insensitive on the part of the meeting, that the Miss Nelly, is it Nelly, the lady we're talking about, she's also in the meeting, because it's not normally right to talk about the person if she's not going to be given the right to respond in a manner that we did today. I think we just need to find a mechanism. I don't really have a solution at this point in terms of how we must deal with that issue. But on all other issues, we seem to be on track, even though we are slow on other areas. But there's a good intention from both sides to cooperate and to make sure that there's a solution with regard to the pressing challenges that are facing the industry. And there's the work in progress that is on the table, which is welcomed by everybody. We will have to apply ourselves and do a bit of consultation, because when we in the labor laws of the country, will not just, you can imagine, you wake up, you say you don't like this one, they must be moved, or they must be, so what about their rights? So it's one sticking area that I think we should be sensitive about and find the ways in which you can manage, and then we note the issues that have been raised, and we also respect the labor laws of the country. We cannot sit in our corners and just vote people in and out. Otherwise, we are not going to have government when we do that. We vote out in and out politicians, not officials. Let's look into this issue quite carefully. I'm sure by the time we meet in the next meeting, we would have consulted different experts from Parliament. I'm sure even the executive will do the same. And then probably then treat it in a much more different manner than we did today, because I wasn't aware that the official concern is also in the meeting. Not that we needed to gossip about her, but we needed to give her some form of dignity. At worst, give her the right to reply on some of the issues which we could not today because we were not aware. And we don't want to further divide the meeting about who's right, who's wrong. And then when we meet next time, we must just probably prepare each other on time that she will respond to some of the issues, probably even the department or senior managers where she reports to, just giving facts and background on where this contingency liability come from. Because I don't have a sense whether she was there, whether she's a cause or not a cause. I'm unable to make any objective analysis as it pertains to her and whatever that you voted. So I would want us to rest that matter and allow us sufficient time to consult to an extent that we also allow the executive to consult, and thirdly, agree on the approach so that in the next interaction, we can also allow the person concerned and their seniors for that matter to probably give us the background information and facts, and then we will then agree on how best to manage this issue. All other issues, I think we are on track, we are together. I just want to urge that with all the difficulties that is experienced by the industry and the dates that have been put, let's stick to those dates to ensure that we can still continue to market South Africa positively and to ensure that in other international platforms where the film sector will appear, we'll still be able to project our country in a positive light. And I'm hopeful again that the Deputy Minister and the team interacting with the National Treasury in the next meeting, they should be able to come up with some concrete proposals that are on the table to ensure that we can once and for all deal with this issue. Thirdly, the issue of reopening the adjudication on the available little resources, having dealt with issues of contingency liability, we need some certainty and firm dates, which should be agreed upon in your own ongoing indication. We don't want to prescribe that ourselves because we are in a much better position as parties that are negotiating to ensure that there is an agreed date in terms of moving forward with those, and hopefully then resolve all other issues that are outstanding. And then towards the November meeting, we should have some positive feedback. I want to implore both parties that perhaps a week or two or so before you come to Parliament, so that you don't further confuse us as you almost did today, you meet and agree on the topics that you want to deal with, on areas of agreement, on areas where progress has been made, on areas where there is still challenges, on areas where there are difficulties, so that we speak to you as two negotiating parties, but on the same topics. And then it is easy for us as the portfolio committee to trace where progress is being made, what challenges, so that we also can know what sort of interventions we can make in the intervening period to ensure that at least there's progress in this regard. But I would like to take this opportunity, if there is no one who wants to say anything, to really appreciate the cooperation between the two, between the sector as well as the department, and acknowledge some of the advances that are positive, and also acknowledge some of the challenges that are being raised, and hopefully that you will work consistently and tirelessly as the two negotiating parties on the table towards the November deadline, and then we probably at that point will have lots of positive news. Any concluding remarks from anyone, the sector?
Chair,
Hello.
I think we have none from our side. I don't know about my colleagues, Ms. Mahlongo and Mr. Makwela, but I assume their silence will speak for themselves.
Okay.
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the department and the DM will be the last.
Thank you, Chair. I think the commitment from our side, the department, is that we will engage positively in pursuit of a sustainable solution going forward, addressing all the issues that the sector has raised. So that's the commitment we're making, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. DM?
No, thanks, Chair. There's nothing left to say on my part. Thank you very much. But it's been a good meeting. It's been a productive one. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, colleagues. We really appreciate this kind of feedback. We will, of course, discuss with the team to look into the positives and probably flag some of the challenges that are a work in progress as we release our official statement to indicate to the people of South Africa the progress we are making. And we want to implore you that we keep the same discipline, and we try and speak in one voice, because at least there's one commitment from everyone to resolve the current impasse between all the role players. With that, thank you very much. The meeting is officially adjourned. Andre, do we have any other business of the portfolio outside of the stakeholders?
The meeting is concluded, Chair. Nothing for today.
Okay, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.